Welcome to this week's video on why I think I almost failed the corporate reporting exam. I've not been shy in saying that this was definitely the hardest ACA exam that I sat. I didn't actually think it at the time when I was studying for it. It was only after the exam that I realised how hard it actually can be. This video is not to just kind of moan and have a rant about my exam. It's hopefully to stop you from making the same mistakes that I did. I've already shared my tips for passing this exam, but now these are my tips for how to stop you from failing. We've all probably had our fair share of bad exams, and to be honest, this can maybe actually be applied to other exams as well. Let me just set the context for you. My corporate reporting and SBM exams, I was due to sit this in July 2020. However, this is when COVID had been kicking off, and so my exam was actually postponed a month. I was also part of a reduced working week scheme as well, so I was actually pretty much off for that extra month. So my exam was in August 2020. By this point, I had already actually done a progress test as well, so I had done that for this exam in June 2020. And so a couple months before my actual exam, I managed to pass the progress test with 62. So to pass these exams, you need 50% in the advanced level exams. So I was passing pretty comfortably actually. So not to brag, I'm just trying to set the context, but in all my previous ACA exams, besides MI, which was awful, and yeah, I don't want to talk about it, but in all other exams I've achieved more than 70. So the reason I'm really, setting this picture of having more time, having done well in a progress test, generally thinking that I would do quite well, I think it's safe to say then that I was pretty confident for this exam. So leading up to the exam, at no point did I think that I would actually find this to be the hardest ACA exam. I really did honestly have pretty much a confidence boost, and I did not think I would be failing this exam. From speaking to others, I've found that this actually might be a common pitfall with the advanced level exams, so just be very careful with how you approach it and just don't get too complacent. That being said, I did still revise. I revised a lot for all of these exams, to be honest, and corporate reporting, I actually managed to get through the whole question bank. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, how the hell did she manage to do that? That is crazy. Remember, I did have that extra month off, and I think that really did make all the difference for that. As admitted in how to pass corporate reporting, I just don't actually think I knew the content as well as I thought. I feel like I just hadn't thoroughly learned the content, and you don't really realise that until you start to really do question practice to time. Cracks maybe start to show. Anyway, that aside, I'd really prepared my open book. I'd tabbed everything up. Really did think that I was quite prepared. However, my mock actually, so the week before the exam, I actually got 48, which yeah, that is a fail. After going through the mark scheme, I had a look and I broke it all down and realised that actually I probably just needed to improve my open book file, and I wasn't too concerned. Like, in the past I've had my BPT mark, I got 44, but in the real exam I got about 81. But yeah, it wasn't really anything to get disheartened about. So where I definitely went wrong, and I think the biggest factor for where I went wrong, and you'll hear many tutors say it about many students, but it was honestly my timing. And I know what you're thinking, and honestly, up until this exam, I had honestly been bang on with my timing. It had never been a concern for me. So when this actually happened in this exam, I was pretty shocked. You're probably all familiar with the fact that the timer actually counts down in this exam. Same for all of them, and you're not really allowed to take a watch in with you, so you do have to rely on this timer. So I actually thought, oh, I'll be clever actually. I pretty much know that the marks are always 40, 30, 30. It's 2.1 minutes per mark. So, let me just kind of work it out before I go in there and save even more time. Long story short, I ended up deducting only 54 minutes for the first question rather than 84 minutes. So I gave myself much less time. I don't know what I was thinking, but it just started off on the wrong foot. So you might be thinking, so what, Jag, you had more time for the rest of the paper? Well, what actually happened is because I was so rushed in the first question, and this was IFRS 9, which is very difficult for me anyway, I just really became so flustered. I think because of this, I just found it hard to keep a cool head for the next question. And so when the next question came up, it was actually leases and deferred tax. I was actually hoping this question would come up, so you'd think that I'd be happy about it, and you think it would be obvious to examiners that I knew what I was talking about, but It just wasn't. And this is what I mean when I said I realised I didn't actually know the content thoroughly. I kept reading the question over and over and I just couldn't understand what it was asking. And the reason is I was clearly having an issue distinguishing between lessor and lessee accounting. I ended up actually only doing part of that second question before then moving on to the third. And I was really hoping that the third would give me a confidence boost. I thought, you know, it might be group accounting, it should be okay, but it just didn't come up at all. So yeah, I pretty much got through the paper and I jumped all over, and I never really do this and I just shouldn't have done it, but I did. And then what it led to was me just being absolutely shattered in confidence by this point. Like, I was so disheartened by the time I got to the third question. I just couldn't believe my luck with this paper. This question was all about IFRS 8 operating segments, and to be honest, it's really just not something that's examined quite often. I'd maybe seen one question bank question on it before, just not a lot. So I just used the standards, I used my open book, and I just tried to kind of pull something together. And yeah, because I wasn't really too familiar with it, I think it also just wasted a lot of time. Yeah, timing was out the window at this point. What I wanted to do is make sure I had enough time for the second question, because I missed that out, but I also remembered there was a bit in the first question that I'd left. Thought I kind of knew the answer for that, so I wanted to go back to it and fill it in, even though, to be honest, you do really probably make the most marks from the start of another question, because in theory that's where like the easier marks are to get. But yeah, about 15 minutes left and I pretty much had the majority of the second question to do. I went back to it. I got to finish the first part on the lessor and lessee, and I don't even know if I still did that right. And then what actually happened is that I just completely ran out of time and I had fully missed at least half of the second question out. These are definitely marks that I probably knew how to get. I think I just didn't even get round to getting onto the deferred tax part, and so in hindsight I probably should have gone back there first. First lesson learned, obviously stick to your timings. I know it's stating the obvious, but I'd never messed it up in all of the other previous 12 exams. I'd never jumped around like that, and I just thought that timing would never really be a problem for me, but you know what, it does just sometimes get the better of you. Here's a little table actually that might be quite useful for you if you want to kind of get a rough idea. And this is what I was trying to produce first, but I just did it completely wrong in the exam. Secondly, just know what works for you. If you're not one to jump all over the exam, probably just don't do that, and I really shouldn't have. Should have just given it the time that I needed and then moving on. And what really went wrong is that this did just massively kind of increase my stress levels, and I really couldn't think clearly. And I do think this is a big reason as to why I just couldn't recognise that least question. Who knows though, really, because then maybe I spent more time on the third question. I just don't know, but yeah. And then my biggest lesson, and what made me realise how hard this exam is just the fact that it can really throw any standard at you. It's even the ones that are just less common or the one that's just not as well known. So, you know, operating segments, for example. Just really make sure that you completely tab up your open book, and it is so good to just make use of the IFRS standards table of contents. You'll just see the full breadth of standards that are there. If you are ever confused in an exam and you're wondering what it's referring to, it just might help spark something. After hearing all that, you're probably thinking, how did you not fail? Because I really thought that I did. I mean, having messed up my timings, like completely missing out half of the second question and probably other bits as well. And I really made so many mistakes as well. I still ended up passing, and it is hard to believe. I just think with these advanced level exams, perseverance is key. At this level, it's just so hard. To be honest, a lot of the, even professional level, but with advanced as well, it's so hard to gauge how well you've done. But yeah, keep going, just don't give up in the exam and just try your absolute best. That's all you honestly can do. I did actually end up passing with 53, so I scraped to pass, but I did still pass. And so yeah, you never know. These exams are just full of surprises. Good luck if you do have your advanced level exams coming up. Congratulations for getting this far, and hopefully you're almost there. But anyway, you found what I've said quite helpful and useful. If you did, give me a like. If you've got any comments, do drop them in the box below. I'd love to read those. And as always, I'll be back with more videos every single week, so make sure you do subscribe, and hopefully you'll see me again soon. Thanks.